the global economy losing one half of it in about 50 years. One half of the economy in the world will be gone.
How?
Get back to that. Think about it. I'm going to be asking you how much sooner. So, do you worry? One of the reasons why we're here. Now, okay, here's some core takeaways. I would like for you, when you go talk to people about it, people say, no, it's not really anything, it's not really blah, 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 blah. No, it's here. It is in Oregon. It is harming. And here's what the professional communicators say we ought to be talking about. We shouldn't be talking about, this or that, trees or whatever. Because an awful lot of people don't relate to your trees or to your grass or whatever. They relate to, we are harming people, places, and things that we love. That's the language that I understand the key communicators tell us. And especially, I'm going to hit the children we love, the elderly that we love, the ecosystems that we love, and the fairness of our communities that we love. I want to talk about those things that we love, that the people you are talking to probably love. They probably love their children too. Yeah. Key takeaways number 2. The average cost per year in Oregon is now at least $7,000 per household. Real money, but an awful lot of it is not money. It is this quality of life. There's no money there, but it's still important. That forest, the benefits you get from that forest is not because you wanted to sell it, it's because that's the way it lives. The benefits from having salmon in the river, not money, but it's still important. This measures the importance of it. I don't use the word value, I use the word importance. For some households, I'm going to show you data, some households it's more than $20,000 per year. Third takeaway, it's going to get worse. It's going to get a lot worse. Now, I'm not smart enough to know that. I didn't do the analysis to do that. What I do is I read an awful lot of science. I read an awful lot of really talented economists, and they tell me it's going to get a lot worse. But people aren't prepared to talk about it yet. Because they talk about it, it's going to get worse. It's going to be $10 trillion by the end of the year, the end of the century. Who the hell knows what that means? I want you to be able to talk about how it can affect you, your grandkids, your neighbors, your community. What I hear an awful lot is, I'm really concerned about climate change, but I don't know what to say. And I get it. If climate change is talked about in terms of science, I don't know how to talk about it. 1.5 degrees Celsius? A lot of people that I talk to don't know what Celsius means. And I don't know how to talk about 1.5 versus 1.6 degrees Celsius. What does that mean? But I can talk about $7,000 or $20,000 for a household. Because that's real to me. Here's what to say. One is, we are not alone. Here's some research. Just came out from the Pew Research Center in December. People who feel that they are sad about what is happening to the earth, 73% of Americans. So when people say that climate change is a hoax and people don't care, no, we care. People who are anxious about the future, more than half. People who are motivated to do more. So if you are motivated to do more, you ought to anticipate that half of the people in your community would like to do more, they just don't know what to do. I deal with that every day. That's why I'm here. I would like for you to hold hands with me, hold hands with each other, hold hands with your neighbors. Let's do something. Next. What to say? You're not alone. People who say this is personally very important, somewhat important, not at all. Protecting the environment for future generations. So we as a society, we as Americans, we're not here just to eat it all up, just to have more. Remember the bumper sticker? The man who dies with the most wins No, that's not who we are. We want to protect the environment. 2/3 of us, very important to protect the environment for future generations. Next. What to say? It's real. It's here now. This comes out in 2004. It's based on data on what is the annual global temperature relative to 1850 into the 1800s. We're into 1950, and the increase in temperature was, this is 0.5 degrees Celsius, that's 1.0 degrees Celsius. The dotted line at the top is 1.5 degrees Celsius, and here we are in 2024, and zoom. The global temperature is 1.5 degrees Celsius above the baseline. And there's been an awful lot of work, an awful lot of it is valid, an awful lot of it is just hand-waving, about 1.5 degrees Celsius. That's a boundary. We know that if we go beyond it, it's going to be really crappy. A lot of people think, well, then if we stay on this side of it, it's going to be okay. No, that's not true. It's just that if we go beyond it, it's going to be really crappy. Okay, next. Human-caused climate change, 97% of the scientists who work on this agree. We've heard an awful lot of the talk, oh, well, scientists really disagree about this. No, they don't. And I pay attention to this, and no, they don't. I work with some of these people. They are tremendously good people, tremendously talented, really smart folks. They agree. This is going on. It's here now. Next. This is a map. It says 385 U.S. counties, their summers are already 1.5 degrees warmer. What it says on the far right is 3 degrees Celsius is really the dark. 1.5 degrees Celsius is sort of the red to dark. And let's look at Oregon. We are on the front lines, folks. We are on the front lines. In summers, you all who lived here long enough, remember when summer was really a pleasant time? Right? Didn't really start till the 4th of July. Right? Labor Day was over. I mean, really great weather in the fall, but summer was gone by Labor Day. No, we are on the front lines. We are the dark light. Next. This is wildfire likelihood from the Forest Service. Less likely is this kind of color. More likely, darker the color, the darker the red. An awful lot of Oregon is really, really red. There are maps like this being produced. Oregon State University has produced one just recently. Got an awful lot of pushback, so they made it a little bit better. I encourage you to go and look for it. Find your house. I found my house. I moved into my house because I talked to every forester that I knew, and they all said, don't worry about it. You live in a wet forest. Fire is not going to be an issue. And that was 30 years ago. And now it scares the bejesus out of me every summer. Let's go next. Number 3, it is harming the people, places, and things we love. And that's where I'm going to go next. So, harm to children. Starts harming children in pregnancy. Heat, especially, and wildfire smoke. That's where an awful lot of the research has been conducted. We know that we have injury, disease, and death for kids, especially heat and smoke, especially heat. Very young children, they just simply don't have the organs and the metabolistic processes to get rid of the heat, and it kills them. Just can't do it. And so if we are going to protect those children, we need to have protections. We can try to stop the climate change, but we also have to protect against the change that is here. Mental health disorders, I'm going to get to that. We know that youth and young people suicides, Hunger, violence, suicide, school performance goes down. How about this? Their future really looks crummy. Surveys. 80% are at least moderately worried. 60% are extremely worried about their future. When you were 16 years old, were you really extremely worried about your future? No, you let me go at it. But not today. Okay? Just a couple years old, so it's worse than that now. Especially in Oregon. Because we've had some really, really crummy climate change here. Now, when you were 16 years old, would you go and talk to somebody to self-report that you were having mental health problems? No, we didn't talk about that. But here it is severe enough that they are willing to tell their parents, their teachers, somebody that they're having mental health issues. These are national numbers, but there's no reason for us to think it doesn't apply to every kid in Oregon. Yeah. How about the old folks? Know any of them? Yeah.
We are so.
Exactly the same thing. If you have a heart condition, if you have a respiratory condition, and you get exposed to heat or to wildfire smoke, there's a good chance that you are going to die. I've talked about this. I'm going to get to some numbers in just a little bit. I talked about this when I was having a heart check, having an echocardiogram. And so the heart tech was going doing this, and I said, hey, do you know that wildfire smoke kills people? Old people say, I believe it. When we have smoke in Lane County, when we have smoke, we get all kinds of old people in here having a heart check. It's just a flood. But partly this is a warning to you. If it's going to be a smoky day tomorrow, don't go out. If it's going to be a smoky summer, try to get an air purifier in your house if you can afford it, or you find a place where you can do this. No. This research that just came out about 6 weeks ago. And I expect that if you are elderly, or you know elderly, that dementia really scares them. It really does. Exposure to smoke makes it worse. How did that work? Well, they don't know, as far as I can tell, but the researchers who've been looking at this out of Southern California basically say, here in California, we've been exposed to air pollution all of our lives, from motor vehicles, okay? Smog and all that stuff. We've been exposed to it. But what we find when we are exposed to the particulates, okay, the small particulates from wildfire smoke, it is 10 times worse. And that research came out about 6 weeks ago. 10 times worse. That's why you ought to be talking to people about wildfire smoke this summer. A lot of this research just came out. Yeah. I don't know how many of you used to go to the coast and see the black and white birds. Some all over the place. Called murres. Last 3-4 years, I haven't seen one. And there's a reason why. This is because hot water. Okay? A heat dome, not in the air, but a heat dome in the ocean. That's why. Yeah. Here's something that relates back to us. This is research from EPA. It's 10 years old. But it says, without climate change, blue is where the water in the streams is cold enough to support cold water fish like salmon and trout and all of the things associated with salmon and trout. North Umpqua River. Not a lot of blue, except over by Idaho. With climate change, too damn hot for us to have salmon. We have cold water fish. So you're concerned about your forest, concerned about salmon, no, this is it. You know, we're doing an awful lot of other things to salmon, but this just takes them off the map.
Do we know what that fourth color is on the climate change map?
Sorry?
Do we know what the fourth color is in like, what's that?
Brown.
Yeah, the brown.
What this says is blue is currently it's cold and it's projected to stay cold. That's blue. Red is currently it's cold, projected to be warm. And orange is it's currently warm and projected to be warm. So you see orange down in
This is what I'm wondering about the brown.
here. The brown?
That's it.
Don't know. Yeah, but it's in it's in Arizona, so who cares? Maybe they don't have fish. Okay? And what about fairness? Somebody has said that they're concerned that people aren't paying attention, the people who make decisions aren't paying attention to us, and yeah, that's exactly right. They especially aren't paying attention to the people who are going to get hit the worst. An awful lot of these people in Douglas County. Awful lot of these people everywhere. You know, I sort of noticed that in my life. And there are going to be more and more of these people. Yeah. So what do you say? Number 4. Number 3 was, it's harming the people, places, and things we love. That's what we just went through. The children, the old people, the ecosystem, and fairness. Now there are costs for every door going in now. I want to talk about it. Be aware. It's every one of us. And now I'm going to really bore you. I'm going to help give you some idea of the many, many different ways that it is harming all of them. And I suspect that if you think about this, you have seen every one of these in writing. I'm going to talk some about the lost cause of trauma. The kids who don't know if mommy and daddy are going to come home from the smoke and the fire. They have that trauma the rest of their life. Yes. Ecosystem degradation. An awful lot of diseases are coming our way. Not just to us, but to your pets. Bird flu? Any of you paying attention to bird flu? Yeah. Some people are getting rich. An awful lot of us are not. That's the inequity at the bottom of it. Personally, I think that's important. I know a lot of people don't. There's more and there's more. I just couldn't list them all. So I want to take a little break. Because I know that this is economics and this isn't happy time. I'm sorry, I'm not here to do happy talk. So if you need time, take a deep breath. And we'll do this again tomorrow, and I do it every time. Take a deep breath, because there's more coming your way. If you need to do that, do that. If you need to think about people you love. If you need to think about, am I willing to do something? Here's one way to think about that. As I understand the science, this isn't part of the science that I am all versed in, but they say people don't do anything unless they have an emotion. They don't do it just because they, I do it. No, they have to be angry. that's the emotion that motivates you. You have to have something that's right here in your heart to make you do something. Now, the bitter irony here is that you're listening to an economist talk to you about having emotions. But that's what I'm here. Okay, anybody else want to talk about something? Why you worry?
I was trying to figure out what I worried about, and when you were asking that
Speak up, so
question,
right here.
I was trying to think of something, and as we got to the end of it, I came up with something. The age of the people here. Now, by the way, this is my brother. My name is Ernie Niemi. This is my brother Ernie. You helped participate in some talks about when Earth Day first came out, and with my students. And I don't know if you remember that or not, but we dealt with that. And I taught high school. And the kids were forced into doing some things in order to pass the class. And I continue to see some of those kids when they see me, they say, remember when we had the forestry people come in and talk about how many trees they were cutting? And remember, your brother said, if we keep cutting at this rate, there aren't going to be any trees left. And I went with him in here another time that he talked. And we had people, young men, who came in who were obviously sent to the kind of get in his face a little bit about all of these issues, and they had no idea what they were faced with. And some of those young men now are looking for trees to cut. And unless the people that you're talking to are young people, I mean like high school kids, junior high kids, young kids are really impressionable. Now, old people are impressionable because you've seen what's going to happen. You understand that. But people are raising families and trying to make it, and it's harder for them to understand. So my concern is that we're not doing what you're doing here with kids in high school. I don't know. I'm not teaching anymore, but my guess is that there's very few high schools in Douglas County who are having these kind of discussions with their kids. And they would understand this. They would. They would understand it better than their parents would. Because of other things, they think about stuff like that. And they really do have the whole thing that you talked about, the mental disorders and stuff. There's a lot of that kind of people. Maybe it doesn't cause them to go crazy or anything like that, but they worry about it.
Surveys of American children and young people. I don't remember if it's going to be in my slides, so I'll mention it now. If it is in the slides, then I'll repeat myself. About 2/3 of them say they are frightened of the future. Yes. They are frightened. I did talk to UCC earlier this morning. No, I know way of knowing, but I thought the students got it. They totally understood it.
But there's a student here tonight.
You know, most students is here.
And it would be nice to also talk about the cost of continued logging.
Well, I wasn't intending to do an awful lot about logging on that, but let me just mention. What is the major cause of climate change? Do you know what it is? Come on.
Deforestation.
No, what is the major, globally, what is the major, what causes carbon dioxide? And where does the carbon dioxide going up in the atmosphere come from mostly? From coal and oil and burning fossil fuel. Okay, because millions of years ago, all of those really huge plants took an awful lot of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, died, and became oil and coal. And now we're reversing that. But here in Oregon, burning fossil fuels, oil and gas, is not number one. Number one is the timber industry. Why is that? Very quickly, it's because you have a tree like this, when you cut it down, half of that tree is carbon. When you cut it down, what I have heard, ecologists, foresters out of Oregon State, especially one named Bev Law, 1/4 of that carbon goes up into the atmosphere within a year. It's slash, and we burn the slash, or it just rots. 1/4 goes in through the milling process. You have to haul it around. You cut off, there's an awful lot of sawdust. You burn that. And 1/4 goes up, several years, because we use the wood products for a very short time, and then they go up in the atmosphere. No, wait. Wood products are going to last here for decades, maybe centuries. I was stunned to learn. I had no idea. For the nation as a whole, if you look at all of the carbon coming out of the mills, half of that, 1/2 of that, is paper. It's paper. How long does that paper last? I'm sorry to say, I have some here. I'm going to throw it away before the end of the year. So are you. Nice cup of coffee. Now, if we can find a way to get that paper back into building these sorts of things, then yeah, there are some adjustments. But right now, they don't have to because we aren't telling them that they have to. Okay? That's all for timber. There's an awful lot more I could say, but that's for another time. Our takeaways, I'll go through them very quickly. Repetition is a good teacher. It's here now. People, places, things we love. That's what we want to be talking about. Do these people care about their children? If they think God's going to take care of them, fine, go do it. But if they're concerned that their kids are going to not be able to breathe, I was able to convince some judges to make a decision to not allow the burning of coal by saying if you're a grandparent, and they all were grandparents, and you see your grandchild saying, "Mommy, I can't breathe, am I going to die?" Are you harmed? Don't care what your political beliefs are, your religious beliefs. Do you feel really, really, really awful? Yeah. People we love. Next. Second takeaway. Oh, sorry, I'm going to do that. Follow up on this one. This comes from, citation you can't see it. This comes from the State of the Climate Report by the world's leading climate scientists. The lead author. Last name is Ripple, and he's from Oregon State University. That's it. That's what the science says. Now, we have heard for a very long time, well, the science, science this, science that, don't forget, who knows what scientists are? No. We ought to be saying, these are the leading scientists and giving us a warning. Yes.
Wow.
This is research that came out of Europe, 2024. This is really hard stuff. And I'm not saying that they're absolutely right, because this really is hard stuff. But what they're saying is that the changes already in place, what the scientists tell us has already occurred, is going to reduce income over the next 25 years. Next. And that's equivalent to $12,000 per Oregonian. So what's already out there in 25 years, this is cash, folks. This analysis is cash. This is your income goes down, your cost of living goes up. $12,000 per year for the average Oregonian. That's a warning. Next.
There we go.
This is 2023. Again, led by Ripple, I've already stated. 15,000 scientists. And think about it. When were you ever able to get 15,000 professionals that ever agree on anything? But yeah, those things are coming. And we know that some of them are already here. Next. And because of those things, they say, we warn of potential collapse of natural and socioeconomic systems. So we're all making decisions assuming that the natural systems are going to continue. Yeah, maybe they're a little bit worse than they used to be 10 years ago when we were kids or whatever. But it's going to be basically the same. These people are saying no. You could see collapse of entire ecosystems. You could see collapse of entire socioeconomic systems. Some countries are just simply not going to be able to survive. And what the heck's going to happen? And that's how you start to get to 4 billion people in 25 years. Yeah. What to do? Cut fossil fuel subsidies and emissions. We know how to do that. Unfortunately, we now have somebody who just took over our federal government saying, no, we're going to go the opposite direction. Give us more. And we need to protect forests. Why do we need to protect forests?
Carbon sequestration.
Sorry?
Carbon sequestration.
Forests take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and they put it in the trunk and into the soil. We're the #1 forest in the world to do that.
Yeah.
From Northern California up into British Columbia on the west side. #1 forest in the world to do that. Next. Oh, here it is. One hot button.
Wow. Yeah.
4 studies that I'm aware of have looked at this issue. What generates carbon dioxide emissions in Oregon? All 4 of them very closely come up with this. Oh, and by the way, when you have this tree and you cut it down and all, you have 3/4 of that carbon goes up, but we plant 4 trees. Yeah, and they grow. But if you left this tree to continue to grow, it would grow too. And you don't get that. That's why it's so big. Because this forest is so important. All of it. Can you go back? See, here's how it works. Go ahead and describe it. And no waste. Okay. Some core takeaways. I had this one before. We're already, every household in Oregon is already above $7,000. We go out and talk to people that, oh no, I didn't give up $7,000. I didn't. No, an awful lot of this is not cash. But it really is important. Okay. The risk of dementia? How important is that to you? Really important to me.
Costly.
Hmm?
It's costly too.
And it is costly, yeah. Okay, next. So let's talk about what do we know? What's the research that I've been working with some colleagues on for the last several months? What we do know is wildfires. Some of the costs associated with wildfires, and I want to run through this and then I want to talk briefly about heat. Wildfire. We have costs in Oregon to suppress the fires. Okay? Next. 2018, the only data that we could find, the cost to fight the fires, $620 million. Next. The cost to clean it up. The cost of the damage. What was burned? You know what burned up? 10 times that.
So is that salvage logging?
Sorry?
So is that salvage logging that costs thousands of money?
No, this is homes and burn. This is infrastructure burn. This is power got shut down. This is the cost of cleaning up. You know, since the 2020 fires up the Mackenzie and Sandium, there's been a tremendous amount of work up there to just clean it up. How many roads? You go up the North Umpqua, how many roads you can't go up? Okay, they're trying to get that cleaned, all that cleaned up. Don't want to go on to salvage, that's another hour. Okay? But just as a rough, what the data out there are showing, is, studies from here and studies from there, it's not perfect. But it says this stuff is 10 times what that is. And so you hear an awful lot of talk. What does the Oregon legislature allocate to fight fires? Well, it's really what we really ought to be talking about is this thing. This is an awful lot bigger. Yeah. How about smoke? Can you get this done out of the way?
Yeah.
This is research that was just published into the summer by the Oregon Health Authority. Tremendous graph. For 2023, the number of days that were hot, so just looking at the hot days, that also had smoke. At least yellow, in terms of the air quality index, at least yellow. Deschutes County had 44 days.
But the state
And only only in November did I learn the information released. In 2023, the acres that were burned were about 120,000 acres. That's about 15% of the average for the last decade. 2023 was not a bad year for fire. And yet you still had 44 days. Douglas County had 14 days, 2 weeks of smoke. Sorry, man.
State average is too low, and the average should be higher.
This is the average for the state. So there are an awful lot of counties that did not have 14. Now, how do we talk about this in economic terms? It's really hard. But we've been doing stuff like this for a very long time, since the 1950s. Of asking people how important is something to you, how much are you willing to prevent it? And so there's been research in the western states, one really good study, and it goes out and it asks households around the western states, how much are you willing to pay to avoid 1 day of smoke? Well, an awful lot of people said, $1.50, because I don't like it, stinks, whatever. But some people, we actually at UCC, one of the students said, it hammers me on my asthma. So if you have asthma and you got to go to work, you might be willing to pay an awful lot of your day's salary to prevent that, so you can go to work the next day. Because a lot of people can't go to work when the smoke is very bad. And if you have a small child who can't handle smoke, or you have somebody in your family who's too old who can't handle smoke, talked about the health guy, in the hospital, you're willing to pay an awful lot because you don't want grandpa to die. So it adds up. You translate it into an Oregon household, it's $450 per household per day is the damage from a day of smoke.
There's also a lot of types of, those are all good points. There's also types of work.
Sorry?
There's also types of work that cannot be done in heat and smoke. So many workers cannot work in those types of conditions.
I have a friend, you'll understand why. He owns a brew pub in Bend. Bend, in the summertime. You have this big outdoor patio. You bring in bands to get the music and people come and they drink an awful lot, they eat an awful lot of pizza or whatever. That's how he makes an awful lot of money. For 44 days, It's actually more than that, because there are an awful lot of days that were not hot and it was still too smoky to be out there outside. So he's sending people home. He's not earning any money from the sale exactly right. There are an awful lot of people. My son wanted me to go buy him a car. Okay, great. Sure. Let's go out to the car dealer. Happened to be a smoky day. We went to the car dealer and said, no, we can't go out on the lot. You want to drive around? You want to walk around? You go ahead. We're not going out there. And by the way, 3 or 4 of us didn't even come to work today. Told us to stay home. Yeah, an awful lot of people. Now, if you make, $1,000 a day, and then you are asked, how much are you willing to pay to prevent that smoke? You might say, well, how about $900? So at least I get $100, right? I'm going to get 0. Exactly. Exactly. That's how we get this next slide.
So who would you pay that money to? That would make a difference.
Sorry?
Who would you pay that money to?
Oh, it's just, if you somehow could get rid of the smoke, how important is it to you? And we've done that kind of research for decades. I'm going to come back to that in a little bit. So in Douglas County, those 14 days at $450 a day, that means on average in this county, the cost was $6,000. You add up the people that are very, very important to their health. You add up the people who can't go to work for 14 days. You add up the people, grandkids can't come visit. You can't go anyplace. You can't go outside. We had a woman who was saying, you can't go and walk. Walking is really important to your health, and you can't go do it.
Yeah, when we had the fires, I remember Douglas County Days, so I think normally I Douglas County Days, but it was too smoky, and I only got to see a band, but I didn't over that year.
So you couldn't go have fun at the fair. The people at the fair trying to sell things, they can't sell things. This is pervasive throughout the economy. So you think 450, you tell that to your neighbors and you say, no way. You need to be able to explain it to them. This is very, very real cash in many places. In some it is just, I'm scared for my kids. I'm scared for grandpa. Next. Deschutes County, it's $20,000 per household from 44 days. For the state as a whole, $6,000 per household throughout the state. Next. Okay. So here's a question that gets asked. What is the cost per acre that burned? And again, wasn't very many acres that year. By the way, last year, 2024, was that a good year or a bad year for fire? Bad year. The 2023, 120,000 acres. In 2024, it is 1.9 million acres. I wanted to go to Eastern Oregon day after day after day last summer. Wanted to go to Steens, wanted to go to Malheur, wanted to go to Painted Desert, wanted to do all kinds of things in Eastern Oregon. I grew up in Eastern Oregon. Wanted to go to Klamath Falls. Where I grew up. Every day I got up and checked the air quality index map and what are the colors on the east side. Every damn day it was red or orange. Didn't go. Cost per acre burn, $85,000. Now this comes into play in my world because I've been working with the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife for a very long time to encourage them to do whatever is necessary to get more beaver out on more streams across the state. And historically, for whatever reason, no beaver, the only reason for us to have beaver is to kill them. Kill them because they're a pest, but also kill them so we get a pelt. $10 a pelt. Okay, fish your cracks. Going back to that. That was the perception in ODF&W until this year, last year, in July, when we have a new director. That new director, as I understand it, is now willing to accept the science that says if we have an awful lot of beaver out there, and by the way, historically, in Oregon, the estimate is we would have had 22 dams per mile where we had full beaver. 22 dams per mile. That fire comes over the ridge, it comes down, it runs into that wetland, riparian wetland, and it goes, maybe it doesn't go out, but it certainly slows down. And so maybe it's worth spending $84,000 per acre Again, this is research that came out this last year. 411 deaths per year for the last decade in Oregon from smoke, people, from smoke. And again, wildfire smoke is 10 times worse than other kinds of smoke that you've seen. Tell that to your friends. 411. Yeah. That's just the cost for that. Now, how do we get that? Again, it's just kind of research. Now, Larry and I will remember 1950s when, hey, there's a thing called seatbelts, and you ought to put them in cars. Oh, no, it's too expensive, don't do that. My dad, we went down with my dad to Sears, we bought the seatbelt, we went home and we installed it in the car. We paid money to protect us against the probability of death. You go out and you look at your car now. How much of the value of that car is money you are paying to reduce the probability that that car is going to kill you? For special lights, for special warnings, go beep, beep, beep when you get close to anything, for something that stops the car, if the car in front of you, the light, the brake goes on, you're spending thousands of dollars in that car to reduce the probability of death. If we add that up over everybody, it's $13 million per death. A little bit here, a little bit there, 100 here, 100 there, $1,000 there, whatever.
But if you're the person dying, that's pretty expensive too.
Yeah, well, we're not talking about particular people, we're talking about a probability of death. So I never want to get into, hey, my death is really worth $100 billion trillion, you know. I'm not going to do that. Saying, we've been doing this since the 50s. This is very well established economically. Maybe nothing is more established than this. That's what we're talking about next. And heat, 2021 heat dome, got hot down here, got really hot in Oklahoma County. You go out and you look, and they look, how many death certificates said heat? 100. But the people who do the research said, that's because doctors never write down that heat killed a person. It was always the hair, or it was a stroke, or it was, whatever. But the scientists, the researchers going, yeah, but that heart attack, that stroke, whatever, is because of the heat. And so it's at least 350, and it may have been 1,000. Scientists are still arguing about that. Next. Go back. That's $13,000 for just one monkey. So think about that. You know people up in Multnomah County and all those deaths? This is a tremendous amount. Next. And this is the final core takeaway. Costs will jump higher because of these two things. The scientists tell us that it's not linear. It's exponential, so it goes up faster and faster. So if we continue to drill in order to make America rich, dig more oil out of the earth, physiocrat over the next 4 years, this is going to go up exponentially faster than the value of that oil. And because the whole economy is going to be disrupted. Next. Red flag. Red flag doesn't mean that the fire's here. Doesn't mean that we know for sure there's going to be a fire tomorrow. A red flag tells us it's really a dangerous time. Okay, it's going to be hot, it's going to be dry, the wind's going to be really hot. That's where we've been hearing about red flags. So what are the red flags? Something I want you to take away, if you would, please. Next. Wildfire smoke. Tell your neighbors 400. It stuns you, except for the heartbeat. Next. By the 2050s, it's going to be 1,000. So think about that. The number of deaths from smoke will more than double. That means that the fires are probably going to more than double. So if you've seen fires in Douglas County, and it's really awful, multiply that by 2.5. And then go tell your kids and your grandkids, hey, hallelujah. And yeah, I'm angry. I have emotions. That's why I'm here. You need to have the emotion to do something. That's why I'm here. Yeah. This is research interestingly done for a corporation. But not for a corporation that is owned by rich people, but it is for the consumer union. Right? It's a consumer co-op that owns Consumer Reports, that has for decades been trying to help people avoid the costs that corporations are trying to impose on them. They hired one of the foremost consulting firms in the world. What are the costs going to be for a child born today? They looked at only a few reasons why income is going to go down, reasons why living costs are going to go up, added that all up, it's probably going to be around $1 million. In reality, it's probably going to be multiples of that. So we got one estimate now, $1 million to your kid. If you have a child that's going to give birth to a grandchild, next week, that's what it means. Poor little thing. Next. Actuary, the professionals who study risk. The Actuarial Institute and faculty in the UK. So this is one of the very first. This goes way, way, way back. This is the people who have been doing this for hundreds of years. On Thursday, issued a report for the first time, and they said, let's listen to what the scientists are telling us. The Ripple report, they cited 2024. They cite the Ripple report 2023. The scientists are telling us we are on the cusp of collapse. Back to when I talked about physiocrats, manufacturing, quality of life, ecosystem goods and services, ecosystem sustaining life. The scientists are now telling us that those ecosystems are very close to not doing that. So the actuaries say, by 50% probability that we will see 3 degrees. Okay, we just did 1.5. We'll see 3 degrees by 2050. This is a probability. They're not saying absolutely. And if that happens, we will see 4 billion deaths. Have a current population of about 8 or 9 billion.
Are you translating that in Fahrenheit?
Fahrenheit is 1.25, something like that.
So I can't help but the 4 billion people die. Are we talking about an actual reduction in population? Because if there's an actual reduction in population, there's an actual reduction in consumption, which means there's an actual reduction in CO2 gas as well.
So we ramp up climate change so that people will die.
That's not what I'm suggesting.
A very real question. It's an absolutely important question, because some people will say, good, let's kill them.
Yeah.
We've got more. Right? And if you haven't heard that over the last week, you're not paying attention, because I've heard it.
What I'm curious.
Okay, but just a moment. But you have to, why? Let's go back to the 5 things. The ecosystem cannot support life.
Yeah.
Right? So if ecosystems cannot support life for 4 billion, it probably isn't doing a really great job for the 4 billion that are left.
Is this a net loss of 4 billion?
Good question. They just say 4 billion will have died.
Because I think there's, what,
4
9 billion?
billion people are going to die.
They're about 9
over the
billion.
course of
No,
30 years.
your question is, climate change will add another 4 billion deaths to what is already going to occur.
Okay. If we keep doing
That kind of number is where I'm curious to understand.
Good question. These are great questions.
What I'm concerned about too is, I mean, these are analysis of the numbers and stuff, but what will happen is countries will go to war over resources. They're already
Oh,
doing
yeah.
it. And that could easily produce 4 billion deaths. And collapse of the ecologies of all around us, meaning war. Just look at the Middle East right now. Look at Gaza.
Ukraine.
Look at the Ukraine. Yeah.
Bingo.
Sudan.
Yeah,
Not talking about.
yeah,
And that's not probabilities.
yeah. I'm going to, we're already 7:15, so. And there's 50% probability that the global economy is going to cut in half. So this starts to get at your questions.
Yeah.
So if the global economy is cut in half, then, yeah, maybe there's more stuff for us, but if we're trying to make money selling to others, then, how does that work? And what they're saying is they're saying, they are not saying, the actuaries are not saying, we've got this all sorted out down to the details. What we're telling you is, this is really big stuff, people. The science is telling us, and the economists are telling us, the economics, this is, if you have more heat waves, if you have more floods, a flood in China, okay, it used to be, it's only the hurricanes in America that harm us. Well, I've heard people in Oregon say, hell, the hurricanes in Florida, I don't care, it hurt me. Well, wait a minute, except that I paid money to taxes that would go down there too, maybe that's all. Oh yeah, it is some of my money is going to Florida. Well, then it was flooding in China. I don't care, in China. You know, they're not real people anyhow. You know, they're not like us, they're them. But hey, you get a big flood in China and an awful lot of that chain of production to bring products back and forth across the Pacific, it goes up, it's done. Okay, we sell an awful lot, we do an awful lot of business with the Philippines. The Philippines had something like 10 hurricanes this year. That shuts them down. The floods in Spain, the fires in Europe. Okay, and people are surprised we had fire in Los Angeles. Everybody paying attention to Athens? Okay? Yeah, it starts to happen here. Again, they're saying, here's the probabilities when you look at what the scientists are telling us. So the conclusion. Okay. Those things. People, places, and things of God. In market. Okay. We're already at $7,000. We're already at thousands of dollars a year. We're already, because there aren't as many fish in the streams, because the air is like this, because there is smoke, because we can't travel to where we used to travel, because there aren't the birds over on the coast that used to be on the coast. Because of these things, the heat, we can't go out with our kids, we can't go for our daily walk with a dog. Those are all very real costs to us. No. And it's going to get a lot worse. So, do you worry? Hope so. And I want to be really clear, personally. I've been working on this my whole career. But right now, I'm angry. I'm angry because the decision makers have been paying attention to other people. And I'm angry because my profession has not communicated this to Oregonians. See, I remember in the late 1980s, early 1990s, there were maybe 10 economists like me working on these forest issues. And we talked to Oregonians every day. We talked in Douglas County. I lived in Douglas County for a while. I worked down here. I came down here and talked to people all the time about the importance of a living tree versus a dead tree. I went to an economist conference up on Mount Hood. It used to be an international forest economist conference every year. And I stood up and I said, we have evidence now that a living tree is more important to the economy of Oregon than a debt trade. And people stood up and spit at me. Well, now we know for sure that that's true. I'm angry that we have a governor who doesn't care very much about climate change. Certainly doesn't act on it.
Not to mention the president.
So, sorry?
Not to mention the president.
Yeah, don't, I connected really. Okay, so that's why I'm here. I hope I gave you some information that will help you. I'm not asking you for any political position. I'm not taking any political position. I'm not asking you to do any specific thing. I'm saying here's some information that I hope helps you. Remember I said, I think I have information to help you. So thank you very much.
So, sir, you said you don't want to take a political position, and I respect that, but you obviously have an opinion about what actions could be taken. Is this an activism solution? Is it a political solution? What do you see? I mean, you clearly laid out the cost, but what's the next step?
If I had the answer to that, we wouldn't have had the inauguration that we had yesterday. So I clearly don't have the answer to that. I believe, I grew up and I believe that information is valuable, it's important. Now, I also read an awful lot that tells me that with the current social media that we have, that's not true anymore. And I don't know how to think about that. I'm searching for people who will tell me what do we